Hi guys, this is Heeral, and in today's video I'm going to be going over how to get over any previous relationship with anybody in your past, regardless of whatever the label was between you two. And in this video I'm specifically referring to a romantic relationship. First thing we're going to do is do not try to forget. So this might actively go against any advice that you've received by a lot of people so far, but as you guys have heard me say in previous videos, whatever you resist persists in your mind. Any thoughts and emotions you try to stuff down, they just eventually end up splurging through. So any emotions and thoughts you have at any time, and this includes even with a new partner, anytime you have an emotion and thought related to this person, you want to just allow them to flow through. Now, this does not mean that you believe in these thoughts or anything like that. It's just accepting those thoughts and emotions, not necessarily believing them. And I'm gonna get into more of what the difference is in a future video. But just for right now, with anybody in your past, any emotion and thought you feel, this includes sexual emotions and thoughts, at any time you wanna allow them to flow through. Next, we're gonna not wanna judge yourself for any past, present, or future desire or action. So, any desires you may have had about this person in the past, present, or future, we're not gonna wanna judge them. We're just gonna wanna accept them for what they are. And these might not even be desires. These might just even be thoughts disguised as desires. So these might not even be true desires. They might just be, thoughts your ego is just trying to throw at you. What we're gonna wanna do is just accept them. Accept these desires or these thoughts that your ego tries to throw at you. And basically, once you accept them, we're not saying they're true, but once you just accept the possibility of them, we're basically lowering the fuel our ego has on us to bother us. Actions, any past, present, or future actions with this person that you have committed or will commit, or any thoughts about any actions related to this person, we also want to accept them, okay? That doesn't mean that they're going to happen, okay? Sometimes our brain has a funny way of tricking us. That doesn't even mean that, any past action that, we're reminiscing about, it might not even have happened in the way that our brain is trying to trick us how it happened. But we're just gonna wanna accept it and let everything flow through for what it is, okay? Once you accept it, your ego can no longer bother you. But if you continue to go back and forth with your ego, you're never gonna win. Even if you win temporarily, your ego is always gonna find some little detail to try to bother you with, even if it's not true. So just, like I said, allow and accept all thoughts and emotions, no matter how crazy they are, no matter how weird they are, no matter how much you're not supposed to be having them. Next, we're gonna accept all fears. What do I mean by this? So some people, let's just say they fall in love or whatever. They fear of never falling in love again. Okay, that is a fear your mind is trying to throw at you. That doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to come true. It doesn't mean that it's not going to come true. But we're just basically accepting the fear so that we're no longer living out of fear. So let's just say your mind's saying, hey, I'll never be in another relationship again, another serious relationship again. We're just gonna wanna accept that fear. That does not mean that it's going to come true. All that means is that we're just accepting the possibility of that, so we're no longer living our life going forward out of fear. If you don't do this, even if the thing doesn't happen, let's just say your mind is throwing a fear about not being in another serious relationship again. Let's just say you do get into one, you're getting into one out of fear, okay? A lot of people you might see, they get into rebound relationships and stuff like that. They're basically just living out of fear. It might also be a different fear, like a fear of, not being accepted or not being validated. Many different fears. How we can, become aware of these fears through meditation. I'll get into another video on that in the future. I'm just kind of listing out the main bullet points right now. So we're gonna wanna accept all fears related to this person or relationships in general. And these fears can spread very, very broad. So awareness is key here in order to accept these fears. And don't be too hard on yourself if you're not able to identify these fears. They'll come to you with time. Just when they come to you, a lot of us have been trained to just kind of stuff them down and push them to the side, either live out of fear subconsciously so that these fears don't happen. But as these fears kind of pop up and surface, you're just gonna want to take a deep breath and meditate if you can, and just acknowledge these fears that are kind of driving how you live your life, and just accept them so that you're no longer living out of fear and that you're living in a more grounded mindset. Next thing we're gonna do is be aware of your ego. So your ego can have attachments, it can have internal hurt, and it can have external hurt, and I'm going to be touching over these briefly. Attachment. So attachment, how your ego can get attached. Obviously, your ego can get attached in a way of emotional attachment, so the emotions, how that person made you feel. But one of the main ways it gets attached, and that a lot of people don't recognize, is we all try to hold on to things. So if we're in a relationship, even if we're not in a relationship, but we're seeing someone or something like that, we like to think that that person is ours. And when your ego loses something, it doesn't like that. So you basically here just want to accept that that thing or that person is no longer in your life. Either a relationship is no longer in your life, a specific person is no longer in your life, something that person provided is no longer in your life. Your ego is attached to this, something about this person. You basically just want to accept that loss fully and don't try to get it back. Next thing is external hurt. Let's just say this person dumped you or something like that. It could be a huge ego blow, as in the society you might think of yourself as lower because someone got rid of you or didn't want you. Your ego is going to try to throw these thoughts at you, and depending on your social circle, it could make these thoughts worse. You're basically just gonna want to get away from people that are making these thoughts worse, but just accept these thoughts. Now, it doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't mean that you have no value or something like that, but just accept the thought that you don't have any, that this person didn't see any value in you. Just accept that. Accept also the thought, if your ego tries to take it a step further, that you don't have any value. That doesn't mean it's true. It just means you're accepting the possibility, so you're no longer living out of fear. The next thing is internal hurt. This is probably the worst one, especially if it was a serious relationship, and why? We tend to, with people in our life, we tend to put on a facade, like act a certain way to appeal someone consciously or subconsciously. However, with this person, you probably didn't do that. You probably showed them more of the real you than you have with anybody else, even some of your closest friends and stuff like that. Now, especially if this person was the one that ended it, this could hurt a lot internally. Why? Because you showed that person the real you, or the closest version to the real you that no one else really has seen, and that person still didn't want that, and that could sting a bit. Again, this is basically just an extension of the internal hurt, but we basically just want to accept that, hey, you know what, this person saw me for the real me, and it's okay if they didn't want me. It's okay that someone did not want the real me. And our ego does not also like rejection. It views this as some kind of form of rejection. That's just something we're going to have to accept. You just want to accept that. That doesn't mean that no one's going to want you or no one wants you now. Any of those things. We're just accepting that, so we're no longer living out of that fear. And we're accepting it so that we remain grounded going forward, and we don't make poor decisions, going into the future, such as, rushing into, a new relationship too quickly, or the opposite extreme where, you go your whole life single. Not that there's anything wrong with going your whole life single, but you're going your whole life single, and it's stemming from some fear or some internal hurt. Next thing is what you miss. And basically, you're missing more how you felt or how your ego felt, not as much as the person itself. So here's an example. Let's just say that this person had a lot of money, and you went out to like fancy dinners, and they might have driven a nice car or something like that, and you're not really exposed to that life. You're missing more how your ego felt versus the actual person themselves. And now you might be thinking, oh, well, what if, this person didn't have a lot of money? Well, you release certain feelings with certain people. That's why, different friends in your life, you act a little bit of a different way with all of them. It works the same way here. Something about this person and it stems from the internal hurt part, where you're kind of missing the emotions you release with that person that you don't necessarily, release with somebody else. Now, that doesn't mean that, that old person was, less than the person you are now. You're going to feel a little bit of a different way about every single person in your life, just like you feel a little bit of a different way about every, friend in your life. But you basically just want to acknowledge the way that the unique way this person made you feel, and, the gap you have to fill internally going forward. So some feelings that you were able to express in front of this person, you basically just have to acknowledge that, hey, you know what, I don't have this person as a tool to release these emotions anymore. And if you liked releasing those emotions, you don't necessarily have to find someone else as a crutch to feel those same emotions. We can feel those same emotions as well. For example, let's just say this person was a very confident person. You're not a very confident person. So your ego relied on that other person. Let's just say they're extremely good looking or something like that. Your ego relied on that other person as a crutch for its own confidence. So now that that person is gone, your confidence also went down the toilet as well. So we can also develop that confidence internally so that we no longer need that person as a tool. This is just one example. I gave the looks, I gave the money. You got to really dive deeper into who you are and who the other person were and what was your dynamic between you two. But hopefully this made sense. The last thing is, we all evolve. The ego tries to hold on to the past, who you were. So most likely, especially if you're watching this video, you're trying to elevate your life, either mentally, spiritually, something like that. Your ego always wants to try to stay behind, okay? And most likely behind means relying on another person for happiness, okay? So your ego is like, oh, remember how happy, it wasn't really true happiness, but it was just, you weren't as independent and happy and whole within yourself, that you relied so much on that other person for happiness that it kind of gave you like an ecstasy rush when you're with this person, the old you. So your ego is like, hey, remember how how happy that person made us? Let's just go back because we'll feel the same amount of happiness. Well, that's not true, because most likely, even if you do go back, you're a new person. You're a more whole person, and you're not relying on anybody else for happiness. But your ego is going to always try to trick you. It's always going to have that grass is greener on the other side mindset. So it's going to be like, hey, you know what, if we go back, you'd be happy. But because, we don't, you're miserable. And you're not miserable. You're just learning how to be more whole within yourself, and your ego really doesn't like that. So touch on these points. Hope this made sense. As usual, if you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to message me. Nothing will, leave me or anything like that. But hope this made sense. I'm going to be, diving deeper later into a couple of these topics in future videos, and hope you enjoyed. And until next time, guys, I'll see you later.